This is Flowers on the Stage. So here we are. We got Dave DiCianni on the podcast, band manager of Goose, Kitchen Dwellers, and Pigeons playing ping pong. Dave, a lot's happened since we last spoke.
It was 2020. We spoke like a few days before everything stopped.
Yeah, a lot's changed. Then
I
you
remember.
went into the live from out there, and they had that dining
Yep.
thing going on.
Yep.
Anyways, what's new with you these days?
It's definitely operating in a bit of a different world. 1111 has really grown since we last talked. Um, we brought in a lot of awesome young managers and young acts. Um, but in my world, things are somewhat consistent. Goose and pigeons and kitchen dwellers are all rolling right along, and I'm involved in a few other things on our roster. I'm helping out with Eggy, and I've helped out with Thumpasaurus, and yeah, that's kind of my workload. All those bands take up plenty of my time, so there's that's a majority of what I work on.
Hell yeah, yeah. I didn't know you guys were working with Thumpasaurus. I saw them a few months ago. Nothing like those guys. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that
It's
was an
fun.
all-time show.
It's super fun. They put on a great show.
You still based in Denver?
Still based in Denver. Yeah, we have an office in downtown Denver. When I spoke to you in 2020, we were a pretty tight, uh, it was like five of us maybe in the office back then. And now I'm not going to count right now, but there's quite a few more and people sort of around the country working for us. So it's pretty awesome. It's like really cool to watch. Obviously, all the bands, growth and everything is really sweet, but it's cool to be watching the company and all the success with managers that are just working alongside me and the roster that we have at 1111.
Congrats on growing.
Yeah,
Congrats on that.
yeah, it's exciting.
So I wanted to kind of start this off picking your brain about what it's like out in Denver. Like, because you're someone who, I mean, you've got your hand in scenes all around the country, but living in Denver, like, can you kind of describe what the scene's like out there relative to the other kind of cities and what makes it unique?
I think I mean it's great to live here. Quite frankly, I'm not here as much as you would think, despite my mail coming here. And having a house and things like that and a life, but I do obviously travel quite a bit. I think the scene here is, especially for certain types of music and outside of jam is one thing, but I think in all sorts of genres, EDM.
Yeah, like all music
Yeah,
basically.
there's really awesome scenes for all of those different genres, but I think you have like some of the most enthusiastic live music fans in the country and quite frankly the world. That's what people do. It's I am spending less time of my free time these days, seeing music. Not that I still don't enjoy it, but it's nice when do happen to be home to kind of find myself hiking or snowboarding or whatever it might be, or just hanging out, going out to dinner, whatever. But a lot of people, a lot of my friends, they're going to shows 2, 3, 4 nights a week sometimes. I don't have that in me anymore, but there's a lot of people in Denver that do. You could go see music 7 nights a week at almost the same venue if you wanted to. Like you could just prior to where I'm living now, I was living till I moved about 2 years ago, but I was living for 2020 into 2022, just like a few doors down from Cervantes, and I was there every night, like I barely left my further than other than to go to the office. Didn't need to go further than a block from my house. And you could go there every night and see two shows. They have two rooms there, and a patio sometimes. So, and there's a lot of great venues. I mean, Mission Ballroom and is one of the best venues in my opinion in the country. That indoor type venue. So and Red Rocks and there's just so much to do. So yeah, living here and being a music fan, I don't, there's just so much variety. Um, and so many options. That's why I moved here 15 years ago. Um, and it's only, it's grown exponentially
Mm.
since then. So
So we
yeah.
we were chatting about, you know, yeah, it's been a while that we spoke, and you're still in Denver. Obviously, it's working for you.
Yeah.
Jump into the side a little bit. Since we last spoke, things have come and gone, like, a global pandemic, NFTs, Goose has gone, going, gone. Um, I'd love to hear you talk about kind of your biggest takeaways maybe over the last 5 years from, all these things, kind of looking back on it.
Oh man, there's so many. I think the pandemic was a really good opportunity to do a little looking inward,
Right.
and trying to create a little balance, which is a roller coaster for sure. And there's times where I think I have a better balance in my life and times where I don't. But I think uh and quite honestly, when the pandemic came about, we worked harder. But by the time it was over, it was like, all right, need to figure out new ways to approach life. But I think that was a huge lesson through that. Um, and then I think, in the success that's come with Goose and across the roster, I just think I'm very grateful and fortunate. Like I've my career has gone beyond what I ever um imagined it would where it would go. Um, there's wins that I've experienced that like yeah there's not wouldn't have you know dreamed of. um so I think I'm just very appreciative that people like the bands that we're talking about trust me with their livelihood and their careers, and I'm really grateful to get to do what I do. um it's being in Denver. uh I think I get to see how much this means to people, and I'm really happy to be a part of it in whatever fashion I can be. So I think those are the two things. The pandemic was the lesson was balance, and I think the success, what I tried to take away from it is gratuity, and just being happy to be here and doing what I get to do. I'm very lucky.
Amen.
This is Flowers on the Stage, a podcast about being creative and finding success. To support it, please check out our sponsors, New Belgium Brewing, Thrax CBD, and Ticket Relief, the ticketing company that plants trees with a portion of each ticket sold. And now, back to the episode.
We mentioned Eggy, Kitchen Dwellers, Goose, Pigeons, mentioned Thumpasaurus. Like, so these are amazing bands. And I'm curious, like, with you linking up with these bands, like how you kind of filter out all the artists in the world, ending up with these 5 bands, and like what about them besides just having great music are you looking at when evaluating that?
There's definitely a personal connection that is a big part of it all. You know, like it's not easy to work with anyone, especially the nature of this work and the you know these artists are putting everything they have into this and you know we're asking a lot of them um and asking them to trust us, you know. Um so I think there's a personal thing that's probably one of the biggest factors is like, you know, you kind of want to feel like you're working with your friends. And all of those band, you know, they have become my friends. Um, but you know, I think the obvious things of talent and music are there. Um, but for me, that connection is an important part of the equation. Um, I think all of the bands we're talking about have an incredible work ethic, you know, like their grind is uh like you I don't think on the fan side of it when you're not involved it's I guess it's obvious to some degree, but like I don't think you can really understand the half of it, of how hard they're working, how much they care, um you know how yeah how I think you see a lot of critics online and like these guys breed those things and they feel it and they try to get, you know, sometimes take it to heart a little too much, but like they're all working very hard and I think that's a huge part of why you're seeing all of success in all of those artists is they're they you know eat sleep breathe what they're doing, um and you know are pouring themselves into every part of what they do. It's not just writing songs, it's not just playing shows. You know, they're taking care of their crews, they're trying to, you know, give fans what they want and what they paid for, whether that's a t-shirt or a CD and or vinyl, you know, or a concert or whatever it may be. Um, so I think that's a big the work ethic and the personal connection are two of the things we're I think always looking for when talking to artists. Um, and then I would just generally say the creativity, you know, like I think all of the bands we're mentioning here, both that I, you know, handle personally and I think on a roster as a whole have a really creative approach that we're able to complement well. You know, like it's fun to work with bands where like we can meet their creativity and drum up really fun ideas. I think, you know, one of my favorite things that we've done with Goose, it was Bingo Tour, which was like kind of a you know, it was their idea at the end of the day, but I think it was we were all bringing like throwing ideas at the wall. And that's where it ended up landing. And I think there's a lot of instances of that with all of those bands where like just the synergy creatively um is a huge part of the formula for why, you know, we're finding success together.
For sure. For sure. You mentioned Bingo Tour, like that's in my eyes a response to shit completely hitting the fan, you know, and a great response, evidently. And, you know, using that as an analogy to, you know, all the times vans have broken down and, you know, you can keep on going down a list of the things that can and will happen. Like, what have you learned are the most important things with dealing with just kind of sudden chaos when shit hits the fan?
Trusting your gut, I think, um is a huge that's that's the simple answer. And like trusting your gut, staying the course, not freaking the fuck out. That's when all of that stuff happened. I think different artists that we worked with, different people, even people that we didn't work with, that were just reaching out to us because they saw what we were doing. Um, look, some people, it was a really difficult time and a scary time. And I think for the most part, we there were moments where this wasn't true, but we were able to stay calm throughout and like maybe be a bit of a voice of reason and like hope. Um, where it's like, hey, these are the cards that we're kind of dealing with right now. And we don't have the power to change anything, but you can control what's in front of you. You can't change, a pandemic or whatever's happening in the world, but you can change the way you choose to go about every day. And I think that that would be my answer there. Is
Mm,
those kind of three things. Trusting your gut, staying the course, and then sort of trying to remain calm and positive um and yeah, not let it all overwhelm you.
mm. Zooming out, I'd love to hear you talk about what you say has been like the greatest thing that's been a teacher for you in your life, through your path.
Um, I mean, I think there's been a lot of actual teachers around me. I get to work with Ben Baruch, who's a amazing, he uh manager. And I've learned a lot from him, and there's a lot of people in my circle that I've gotten to, whether it's promoters, booking agents, the artists themselves have all been amazing teachers as it applies to what I do. Um, I think there's more there's things beyond, you life teaches you lessons in a lot of different ways, personal growth and things like that. But as far as it relates to my career, I think Ben it's been amazing to spend the past, how long have we been working together now? Like 6 years, working alongside him, and I work in an office that's really pretty tight knit, and we lean on each other a lot, whether it's Ben or Ross, who manages dogs in a pile. There's Dan Rosinski, who works with Corey Wong, and Dan Robb, who works with Eggy and AJ, who I know you've had on the show. And a bunch of people in our office. Alice and Frank are our marketing team, and there's a guy, Matt Hogan, that's out in Michigan, and our whole team, I think they've all been really good teachers in different instances. And then outside of our that immediate 1111 circle, people like Pete Shapiro and Dan Berkowitz and uh, and our booking agents, Ethan and Carl, Josh Knight, who I work with. They're people who support a lot of the bands and that I work with, and they're very supportive of this live jam scene that I've kind of very much got my hands in. And they've been around it for a long time, and they've, you know, taught me a lot along the way.
I love it. Can you
Yeah.
talk to me about something with managing your bands that you don't do that you think, is beneficial, like something you avoid doing?
Picking up calls after 5 o'clock. Yeah, that's like, I think there's definitely boundaries that I've gotten better at over the years. I used to just like, I would fucking be working on spreadsheets till 2 a.m. And just like, or whatever the hell I was working on. Um, and to get back to like the thing you were talking about earlier about lessons, the balance has changed my, like, at a certain point, I'm more valuable if I like get a little bit of sleep and I'm not fucking,
Yeah.
pulling my hair out, and stressed. So, uh, I've gotten to a point where at a certain point in the day, like my brain isn't what it is at 7 a.m. And I just need to step away. It's a hard thing to do, and I still, you know, I'll get caught on the couch at 8 o'clock at night, like checking the email, and I have to try to put it down. But I think just generally boundaries. So it's not, I think there's a lot that I'm not doing between 5 and midnight, but I think it's getting a little time to like reset for the next day. Um, what else don't I do that I think is a good thing that I avoid? Um, I think that's a big one. I also try to avoid too much like internet chatter. Um, I think that can really influence the way certain decisions are made, and like, they're not that I don't appreciate people's opinions, and I'm happy to hear them, but sometimes it gets a little out of hand, and turning that off is something or tuning that out, I should say, is so it's also not something I'm not doing, but maybe something I'm avoiding.
I'd love to hear with the people you work with, what common personality traits that you most admire.
Um, I mean, I think the like, to going back earlier to that work ethic, and just striving to be better, constantly, is something I really admire. I think humility is something I really admire, that is an important part of I think keeping groups of people working effectively together, when you have, whether it's a band of 4 or 5 people, and then there's a whole big crew behind them, and I think staying humble is an important part of keeping the group functioning well. Um, you know, I think those are two of the biggest traits I admire. I think just generally being, caring, and it's a crazy lifestyle. And people need to lean on each other once in a while, and people need to understand each other, that, empathy, I think, is another big thing that I admire when I see bands, a band member understanding something that another's going through, or a crew member, or whatever it is, and just that at the end of the day, all of us are just people, and we're all, just trying to honestly make a living. Um, and you kind of need to remember that once in a while, because it gets tough. Uh, Life gets tough, um, and people go through shit. Uh, and it's not always easy to go through shit when you're on a bus with, 12 people who haven't showered in 5 days. Or, in a high stress, work environment, that I might find myself in, because we're all, you know, trying to announce our summer tours, and it's crazy, and we need tickets to go up at a certain time, or whatever it may be. Um, I think just seeing everybody for the humans that they are is a trait that is something I really admire. When somebody recognizes, like, hey, I get it, you're having a rough day, like, take a breather, and I I I I see you. I think that's uh something I really admire in the people that I work with.
I love that answer.
I know.
So specifically about leadership, in addition to these things, what would you say are the things you've learned are most important with being a great leader?
Um, I mean, there's a lot of ways to answer that question. Um, I think organization and communication. I think communication is such a huge part of it all. Um, and really making sure that, there's so many people involved when it comes to bands and artists,
Right.
whether, the actual bands and the crews. And I think making everybody feel a little bit of ownership, and communicating well is a really important thing in uh, acting as a leader among a large group. I think being personable is a really, like it's in the position I'm in, sometimes I have to sort of play the bad guy a little and put a foot down or maybe deliver some news that isn't the greatest or I can't say yes to everything and I have to say no quite often. But breaking through like some of the professional like relationship and having a more personal relationship where it's possible and is I think a really important part about being a leader. Um, it goes back to something I think trusting your gut is a really important part about being a leader. Um, and being able to like effectively make decisions. I think that's something that like um good managers and good leaders are well adept, at not, I have to make a lot of decisions on the fly. And sometimes they're the wrong ones. Um, but you know, if I weren't able to make decisions effectively and not necessarily quickly, but like, a well thought out decision, but not something that I get caught up on, it's so easy to overthink at every turn when you're managing um an artist. And sometimes it's a good thing to overthink it, but like you kind of need to balance it and make sure you're not doing that all the time because it really affects your ability to lead. Um, so yeah, I think decision making would be a huge one that uh, I think effective decision making leads to success. And it doesn't always, like I said, it doesn't always need to be the right decision. It's just like not slowing the role of whatever you're working on because you know you can't decide if a poster should be red or blue. um that's something. It's like, all right, just make it red, like, and move. Like, let's not get caught up on the little detail there. um
For sure.
so yeah, I think recognizing the important things that need to be done and the important decisions that need more time um is a really major part of that.
Can you kind of dive deeper into that part you mentioned about having the entire group take ownership? Like that's something easier said than done. Like people who aren't necessarily at the head of the spear, like also being bought in and accountable. Like how do you go about that part?
I think it's there's so much about you know making sure that people know that they're heard, like just being a sounding board um for people who may have less of a voice within a certain thing. um but they still deserve to be heard, and I think that helps helps with like that group mentality. I think beyond that, and this sort of goes into being heard, but just like trying to check in on people when you're able helps with that. Um, just seeing if there are things that people have to say. Um, all of those, yeah, it is a very tough thing to do, and it's a roller coaster because I think anyone involved in a small organization, whether it's a band or a restaurant or whatever uh type of business where it might be, there's probably a roller coaster for people of feeling really invested and then maybe at other times not. But in a management or leadership role, I think it's like you got to kind of keep getting those people back into it. So sometimes it's recognizing that it's a lot about recognizing that maybe someone is like having certain feelings that aren't making them feel as invested in something, and you go, check in on them. Hey, well, what's up? Like, how are you? That I'm like as much a therapist as sometimes as I am, and I don't have any like credentials to do that, but it does become, it's often like a very friendly kind of like, hey, I'm not, not feeling great about these things, and checking in with people. And there's instances where people are hearing me at the other side of that. Um, and I'm not feeling great about things. Not doesn't happen quite as often, but I think that's making people feel that ownership has a lot to do with just communication. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
things we're getting back to here. And
Nuanced situations, though.
yeah, definitely nuanced situations, but communicating with those people and checking in on them, whether it's crew or band members or whoever, it's a grind, and people get tired, and people get discouraged. Um, and being an ear in the situations where it calls for it is important.
Totally. If I was an artist, I'd want my manager to, you know, be able to wear that hat too. It's
Yeah,
not we're
it's
not
a
all numbers and cogs in a machine.
yeah, it's a huge part of it. It's yeah, that's I think another like leadership skill, for sure.
Jumping slightly to the side here, I'd love to hear you talk about like when you think of all artists, the artists for you who are at the top in your mind, like specific things that you most admire about them.
Man, that's a good question. I think artists who can reinvent themselves, constantly. Um, like for instance, Beyonce, who I think is an incredible artist and is, about to drop a country record. Like the people, the art, at least when we're talking about music and not music, um, but that's something I can speak with a little bit of knowledge on. I think artists that can reinvent themselves like that is something I always look at, and it like blows me away when or Andre 3000, like that's I've probably listened to that Andre 3000 record maybe more than anything else that's any new music over the past 4 or 5 months. um and I love it, and it's like it's just so different, and such a I was so excited when when I heard Andre 3000 was putting out a record, and then when I found out that's what it was, I was like, what? Like, my mind was that's not what I was expecting. Um, and yeah, I think the ability to change the course and like do something that's new and creatively fulfilling and not just giving people what they expect or want, is something I really admire in some of those like in the I mean, yeah, I think I'm a huge Mac Miller fan. I think he did that, really effectively, particularly toward the end of his career or his life. Um, I think Kendrick does that a lot. Um, Fish has done it. The Grateful Dead did it to some extent in different ways. Prince is like, Prince and David Bowie are like the ultimate I think examples of artists who reinvented themselves over, 30. Bowie is like 40 years. Um, so I think that's so admirable and cool when there's somebody who can do that. Uh,
For sure.
yeah.
What would you say are some things that are maybe overlooked or potentially misunderstood by regional artists who are looking to become nationally touring artists, like headliners?
It's a good question. Um, I would say, I mean, there's sometimes I see young artists kind of thinking things should be happening for them faster, and that ends up leading to like you're kind of setting yourself up to be disappointed or discouraged if you had like it's good to set goals but not expectations. Um, because yeah, I think expectations lead to disappointment, or discouragement. So, I think I see that occasionally where it's like, you know, how do we get there? Or you're looking and comparing yourself to someone else, um, which is I think can be detrimental too. Um, so that would be my, I think the first advice for like a regional artist trying to, misunderstanding something. Um, there's other things too. I think if, 6, 7 years ago when I was working more with regional artists, I probably would have had a better answer for you, but I'm admittedly a little maybe out of touch on certain things that uh that might be happening there. Um, but yeah, I think, uh yeah, the expectation thing I think can really get in the way of growth, and think, oh, this you know, I've been doing this for this long and now I should be playing this venue and I should be able to get on a support tour with this band and like, and then it doesn't happen and you're discouraged. Um, so yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, man, I'm loving your answers. Thank you for kind of giving us a crash course here a little bit and look into your day to day. This has been awesome, man.
Yeah, dude. It's good to chat and catch up.
What do you think future you would say to you now if given the chance?
Slow down.
Soak it in, smell
Yeah,
the roses.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That I, yeah, I know that I would say that to like my 26-year-old self, and I haven't slowed down that much. So yeah, I think that would be it. Slow
But not
down,
too much.
but not too much. Like still grind, but enjoy it once in a while.
So, and with where you're at now, like other than, your pace and kind of work-life balance, what is professionally, what does growth and improvement look like for you?
I think, I'm pretty happy with where I'm not at. Not to say that I can't grow. I think there's obviously a lot of things that I can improve on and grow. But like to really, I want to give you a good answer, and not be like, you know, don't read news about New York Giants at lunch and like keep emailing. Um,
Or the Eagles?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't know why I read news about the Giants. Um, I I think growth for me would mean continuing to build up, the artists that I work for and the people who work around me in a positive way and kind of maintain, the moral compass, and just continue to do that. Uh, but I mean, I think the way I look at myself, my professional growth is very much attached to the growth of the careers, um, of the bands that I'm working on. And that's a huge part of it. I also really, being in a different kind of evolving ecosystem at 1111, I'm finding a lot of um joy or like fulfillment in watching the people who work alongside me grow. Um, so like I think helping to foster um professional growth for people, adjacent to me and sitting in the seats next to me, or maybe not, at the other end of the calls that I'm on, like I think helping, that's become something that's really fulfilling professionally. Um, so yeah, I think it doesn't, again, there's a lot of shit I could improve on. Um, I sometimes it's funny because we talked about this, trusting the gut and decision making. Sometimes I move too quick on stuff, and like and slowing down a little would serve me well. So like that's a personal thing that I work on a lot. It's one of the reasons like Ben Baruch and I work well together, I think, is like he tends to like really like to like marinate on things sometimes, whereas I sometimes don't. And there's been multiple instances where I'm like, yep, you're like, I should be slowing down here. Like, all right, let me step back. Um, so yeah, I think for personal improvement, that's something that I could work on. I also can be impatient, um,
Mm,
which goes into that same thing. Um, you
patience is a bitch.
Yeah, yeah, I can be impatient, especially when there's like I have 1,000 things going on. So yeah, that's I work on like stepping back and breathing. I take walks at lunch now just to like, get get my uh chill out a little. But yeah, I think from looking at myself, I think those are some personal improvements I could make. But at the professional level, it's really tied to the artists and the people around me and the company that I work for, um and being able to help that all grow is the metric of my own kind of professional growth.
Mm. We need more of that. Nothing like people pumping you up, especially, being a pro at, helping grow artists. Like, man, world needs more of that. Dave, you're the man. goes without being said, dude. Thank you for, all that you do for artists that, I love, probably people listening to this love. And yeah, man, thanks for everything.
Thank you, man. And yeah, same to you. I think what you're doing is great. And I think you're having some awesome conversations with a lot of great people. So yeah, man, have a good one.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Take care until then, and cheers, my man.
Cheers.